What is the floor plan? The floor plan is the plan that we use to show us all of our new walls that are going to be created from the floor up. The floor plan is used by the framer to show them all the new walls, where they'll be placed, and what they will be made out of. The floor plan is the most important of the plans used by the framer because, again, it gives the framer the plan view or the view from above of all of the new walls that are going to be built from the ground up. Let's get into the floor plan. Okay, so what is the floor plan? The floor plan is the basic plan we use that the framer is going to use in order to build all of the new exterior walls and all of the new interior walls. And so there are certain things that will be noted on a floor plan, certain things that we need to look at in order to properly analyze the floor plan. And what we're doing here is we're analyzing the floor plan. If we are the framer, we need to know some things and we need to know how to get to that information. So the floor plan helps the framer get to or answer one question. What types of walls are we building? And how many linear feet of each type are there? And those are pretty much the two questions that a floor plan will answer for the framer without going any further. So let's take a look at the floor plan. So if we are the framer, what's our first question is what types of walls are we going to build? Are we going to create walls that are made of wood studs that are 2x4s, 2x8s, 2x6, or are we going to create metal stud walls, which would be mixed numbers, right? So the equivalent of a 2x4, I always say it's the equivalent of a 2x4, would be a 3 5/8 stud. And the equivalent of a 6-inch stud for metal would be a 5 7/8. And so that's really the first question that needs to be answered on the floor plan. And so that question either is going to be answered directly on the plan, as is this case, or they're depending on the size of the project. Okay, so this is a small retail kitchen, 3,500 square feet, so that's considered small. But if we have something like an apartment complex or a hotel or something of that nature, maybe even a school, we may have a whole page of walls, the wall legend. We may have a wall schedule and legend. And I hope all of our terminology videos, you've gone through and reviewed those, because we have to make sure we have our terminology clear when we're talking about these things. Okay, and so on a smaller set of construction documents, you will probably have your wall schedule, and again, schedule is just a fancy term for list, on your floor plan, as it is the case here. Okay, and so we know that the majority of our walls that we're going to be building are made from wood, because when we see the X or the 2x, 2x4, 2x6, and this class is intended for beginners. And so we are going to explain everything from a beginner's perspective so you can get a good, solid, technical understanding of what we're looking at. So we know that anytime we see the 2x4, 2x6, 2 times symbol, we know that's wood. If nothing else, cannot be. Even the other types, and we'll go through the different types of framing members. And members is another one of our technical terms, which is just that if you're a member of a family, you're the brother, the sister, the mother. Well, a structural member is either a post, a column, a joist, a stud. Okay, so members. All right, so we're on this floor plan, and now we know we're the framer, and the framer primarily, that's the trade that will primarily use this floor plan. And now I know that it's telling me that the wall A is a 2x4 framing at the 16 inches on center. Okay, so that 16 inches on center, 24 inches, that tells us what? That tells us the placement of the studs. How often are we placing those down? Well, in the case of wall A, it's every 16 inches. And so if you want to think of it in most general terms, we'll put one stud in the very center of the wall, and then we'll place other studs on 16 inches on either side every 16 inches. And so when we have to do the material quantities, which we will, because we go from the cost estimate to the material quantities, we'll be able to tell how many studs we need for any length of wall, because we can do that math. Because we know how often we place them, either 16 inches or 24 inches. And so if we know how many inches in total of wall we have, and we can easily do that by converting the feet into inches, right? By multiplying by 12, because for every 1 foot we have 12 inches. And so that's a little easy construction math that we always have to be able to do off the top of our head, because in most cases, we can do this doesn't have to be for studs. It could be for screws. It could be for nails. It could be for bracing. It could be for rebar, right? So we always have to be ready to do that calculation. And in most cases for construction, we're always going to place something at the inches. Okay, so have to be ready to change those feet into inches, and then we multiply by whatever the placement is. And I say the placement, the number they say 16, 24, that's the placement. So we know if we have 100 feet of 2x4 framing, we can multiply that 100 by 12, right? That will now be 1,200 inches. And then we divide by the placement, divide by 16. And that tells us how many studs. So again, this doesn't only apply for studs. This applies for nails, anything where you see the plan saying that you have to place it at the whatever inches off center. Always keep that equation in top of mind, right? So we're the framer. We know we're framing wood walls. Okay, and now the only thing left to do is to just determine how many linear feet, right, of each type of wall. Okay, floor plan, the purpose is to identify the types of walls, identify what we're making them out of, and then use that plan to measure what? How many linear feet? We cannot use the floor plan to determine the height of the wall. That's when we go and transition to the section views, which we've gone over the views. Watch that basic video, because the architect is telling us, can only give us so much information in one picture. And so that's why it's very important to understand how to transition from, well, first of all, know what the symbol means. Okay, so our very detailed technical basics has a video for each one of these things, and a lot of talking explaining. Okay, so we know that this symbol is a section view marker, and the purpose of the section view marker again, go review the basics video on section view marker and on the views. Okay, so the purpose of the section view marker is to tell us, or to talk to the framer when the architect's not around it. And basically it's saying, if you want to know the height of the wall or the interior construction of the wall at window, and we have to know what all of our symbols are at window A, then I want you to go to image or picture number 1 on section or on page A426, and you'll get that interior construction. And from that section view, we can determine the height of the wall. We can determine the height of the wall under the window, and we can determine the height of the wall above the window. And that's very important once we get to section view. But right now we're just covering the plan view and the floor plan. Okay, so we have these section views all over the plan, and so those are the words from the architect saying that basically our wall is built different here than it is here, than it is here, than it is at the door, than it is at the window. And so what we want to do, if we go to the next step, which is to complete a takeoff, and the takeoff is going to be broken down based on those section views. And that's going to help our framing contractor be very detailed on the wall types because, ideally in some cases, in most cases, at the section view, we're going to see wall construction that may or may not have insulation at one point. It may have plywood at one point. There, of course, is a section of wall that will be at the door, and so we need to be able to determine the height from the door, above the door, to the ceiling. And so the section views are very important. A good floor plan, if it's going to be very helpful to the sub, there are going to be a lot of section view markers, because the section views again are going to assist us in determining the height of the wall. And so here on the floor plan's job is to again help us measure how many linear feet of each type of wall based on our legend, what we are instructed in terms of maybe even the specifications on the types of walls and what they're made out of. Okay, and now, very specific to many floor plans, what we call they're highly dimensioned. Okay, and so again, we can use the dimensions on the floor plan. If we don't have a digitized software to help us correctly or accurately measure lengths, we can use the measurements that are on the plan on a highly dimensioned plan. Dimension is a measurement, and so a good floor plan is going to have a lot of measurements there for you, so you can relate the wall lengths to the actual measurements that they give you. And so if we can remember, I'll just give one example here. That if we can remember from grammar school, basically if we have two parallel lines, and parallel lines are lines that will never cross, right? And so we have one is the measurement, one line would be the measurement, and then the other line would be the actual wall length or the wall itself that we're building. And so if we know that this length from here to here is 3 feet, 2.5 inches, we can assume that the length of the wall in those same from here to here is also 3 feet, 2.5 inches. And so on a good floor plan that has a lot of dimensions, you can use those dimensions. Here's a second example. If we want to know basically our wall at our window or the length of the window itself, the window begins here and ends there. And we see that we have a line here and a line here. Okay, and so if we go to this line, we can tell that that length or the width of that window is 15 feet. Okay, so the way we read these lines are from hash mark, which is that diagonal little mark that crosses the horizontal and the vertical, that diagonal, from hash mark on one end to hash mark on the other end. Okay, and the number in the middle is the length. And so we can relate that length, 15 feet, one parallel length, to the parallel length of the window. And so we know that these windows are 15 feet in length. And so again, even if we didn't have a good digitized software, if we have a good dimensioned set of plans, dimensioned floor plans, and again, typically the floor plan will have a a floor plan that's showing all of the walls, and then it will have a second set that is highly dimensioned like this. Okay, and so we're going to have another video to show us about section view, right? So our floor plan, the job of the floor plan is to show us all of our new walls. We are able to use that plan to help us measure the length of the walls. And we usually, good practice would be to break down the length of each of the, or break down the total length of walls based on the section views that are given. And we'll have a separate video. We do have a separate video on how we read the section views, what are the section view markers, how we should read those based on where they are located. Okay, and so that will be part of our part 2 for the floor plan, because we have to be able to incorporate those section views when we are looking at the floor plan. Because again, the floor plan is for our framer, to help the framer understand how new walls are going to be built. But we understand that the wall has a length that we can determine from the floor plan, but the wall also has a height. And we have to look at the section views in order to determine the height of the wall. In the best case scenario, we're always able to go to a section view in a best case scenario. And I say that to say, not every set of plans gives you a good section view in order to determine your height of your wall. So there are other tricks of the trade that we'll talk about at the end of the class, in terms of additional notes that you can use, additional tips you can use in the event that certain things are missing on your plan. Okay, so this is master the plans. This is floor plan. This is only one part of floor plan. We also have to go to section view related to the floor plan, and also to detail view related to the floor plan. Okay, so remember, this is just section 1 of master the plan, floor plan. We'll see you on the other side. What is a section view marker and why do we use it? It's very important to understand the symbol, how to identify it, and where to go when you see it. Let's talk about the section view. Okay, everyone, now the section view marker is a very important symbol. It's unique in how it's drawn, although there are others that look like it, but it is unique. And the section view marker's job is to communicate with the professional. Now, you'll have a section view marker on the floor plan. You could have section view markers on the roof plan. You could have section view markers on an elevation view. And so it really doesn't matter where the marker is. It's all about how you interpret where it is and your ability to know where to go and how to read it. Okay, and so in the beginning, it may seem pretty difficult, but it's not really. The section view marker is going to be placed in a position that makes the most sense. And what is the purpose of the marker? The purpose of a section view marker, and we're looking here for our Master the Plan for our floor plan series, because our framer needs to be able to determine the height of the wall, not only the length, right? So the floor plan will give you the height, the floor plan will give you the length, where you have to go to the section view markers in order to determine the height of the wall at that particular location. And so when you are the framer and you are measuring all of your lengths of walls, it's probably very smart to measure the lengths based on each of the section views and how the architect breaks down the section view. Because again, they're usually put in very logical locations. For instance, we have a section view here at what is a window, right? So what the architect is telling the drywall professional is that the wall at the window is built this way. And so if I go to, and this is how you read it, right? So the section view marker looks like a detail marker, but the detail marker doesn't have this little sideways hat. Okay, so that is the difference. So the section view marker is very unique. The circle, the little hat, a leg, and this little extension, I call it a foot. And the way we read it, and the way we read all symbols of this type, is that in order to get a deeper understanding of the section view, you're going to go to the number at the top indicates the image or the picture that you're going to look at, and the number at the bottom indicates the page that you're going to go to. And so it's really simple. And so, but again, for the framer, you need to kind of get a wider view of your section view markers, because they're going to place them at logical locations. Where I'm the framer, I'm thinking, okay, I want to look at this one because it's going to tell me specifically how my wall at the windows are built. So I'm going to go to image or picture number 1 on page A426. And then they have another one here, image number 4 on page A425 at the double doors. So the architect is saying if you want to know the construction at the door, then you're going to go to that section view and all the way around. If you want to know what the wall at the rear of the bathroom, and those are, I believe, wall C's, and you can barely see that, you're going to go to image 2 on page A426. And so we can see here that the section view marker, the leg of that section view marker is typically always going to go through the section of wall that it is referencing. And so what I'm going to assume when I'm looking at this is that I'm going to assume the wall at the door, right, is going to be built different than the wall. Well, of course it is because it's the door. Would be built differently than the wall at the bathroom, which would be built differently than the wall at the back of the house. Okay, and so what we want to do is, again, when we're reviewing our floor plan and we are the framer, we want to make sure we break down all of our walls based on the section views. Okay, and so we'll go to the main section view. So if you had to, in your own words, say, well, what is a section view and what does it do? It basically cuts the wall in that, wherever it's placed, it'll cut it in that section, and it pretend that it's opening up the wall in that section and putting you right in between, and you can see the interior construction of that wall at that section. Okay, so that's why it's very important, again, and I can't stress it enough, that you measure your walls based on the section views, and then you'll have so many linear feet of each section view, which will total all of your walls. Okay, so let's look at wall sections. And yes. Okay, so I'm the framer. Now I know the height of my walls, and that's very important. And that is the main purpose of the section view, is to help you accurately determine the height of the wall at those locations. And so I'm going to have so many linear feet of this section of wall, so many linear feet of that section of wall, and all the way down. And then that way I can have a very detailed representation on how my walls are built. And two, for the purpose of your material quantities, you always want to use your section views as your guide to material quantities. So when you're ordering your studs, you'll know to order so many that are 4 feet, because the section of wall under the window is only 2 feet 8 inches. And so you want to be as close as you can in height for your stud height, as close as you can to the height you actually need. And that's another good reason, of course, for your section views. But the section views, again, is to give you that interior construction, right, to show you for the framer. And this is to master the floor plan, which is typically the plan that the framer uses. And so the floor plan, we use the floor plan to measure the length of each section. Then we go to the section views. So we can say, okay, that many linear feet at 12 feet, 16 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. And then when we're in the section view, we then come to the third of the views related to construction. And that is the detail view, or a detail call out. And why would we need a detail call out? So when we think about the floor plan, that's the plan we use to build the new walls up from the floor. We need to be able to review the floor plan. That's the plan view, basic of the views. Then we need to go to the section view to give us height. And then we go to the last of the construction views, which is the detail view. And let's talk about what that is. In this portion of Master the Plans, we talk about the detail call out, the symbol you see in the middle of the screen. So many mistakes happen because contractors leave out the steps involved in the call out. Let's discuss the detail call out. Okay, everyone, so what we are looking at here is the detail call out. And what a detail call out does, it gives us, or it points us to a location in the construction where the architect is telling us there is something in this circle that you don't see that is important to the final construction. And if you go to image, in this case, image number 4 on page A450, you'll be able to see what is missing here and avoid a construction defect in your construction. Okay, so detail callouts are very important. It doesn't make a difference where they're located. If you see that what's within the circle is part of your scope of work, then you must follow the call out. Okay, and I say that, for instance, we have here at the parapet cap, well, we see that the call out 1/A450 involves, and say for instance we are the roofer. Okay, so let's just pretend that we're the roofer. The roofing call out would have brought us here, or the roofing section view brought us here. And because we see, or even if we're the framer, rough carpenter, we see that our scope of work is within this picture. We see, and this X represents wood, 2 bys. Okay, so I see that my scope of work is within the call out. So that requires that I go to the call out, because there is something, as the purpose of the detail call out does, it's telling us, or it's pointing to us, or it's reminding us that there is something within here in terms of the construction that we don't see within the circle. But if we go to image number 1 on page A450, we're going to see what is missing, and then we will be able to incorporate that into our construction. So let's go to image 1/A450. And again, this call out, we were brought here from our floor plan. Right, this is all part of our Master the Plans floor plan segment, where our floor plan is for our new walls up from the floor. From there, we're led to section views, which is what this is. And from the section view, more appropriately, we're led to detail views, because there's something, again, within this detail call out that is part of our scope of work, part of our what is required in our construction. And the architect will point us to different pictures using different symbols. And it looks a lot like the section view marker, but it doesn't, only in that it's a circle. Okay, but the architect can't sit next to us when we're doing the construction and telling us what to do and making sure it's proper. So they lead us by pictures and symbols to other pages that give us more and more detail. So the detail call out, if we watch the views video, that is the last of the construction views that will give us the most detail. So whether we go to 4/A450 or 1/A450, we'll do that now, and then we'll take a look at both of the detail views. So let's see. Let's find one. Okay, that's 3. There's got to be 1. Okay, so this is the section at the parapet. So I know now there's a lot here in this presentation of the top of the parapet that was not in the detail call out. And so now if I'm the framer, I know the size of my top plate, 2x8 plate. I know those are 2x6s. I know the nails I need. I know I have to wrap my membrane roofing around the parapet cap. I know that I have to have the aluminum cap. Okay, so who would have been led to this detail call out? The framer, the roofer, maybe rough carpentry, the insulation individual. Yep, that's insulation ephes. Okay, and so in terms of our floor plan now, to wrap up floor plan, okay, this detail view is very important. That is the last place we're going to come in order to make sure we are performing the proper construction. Okay, so if we wrap that up, that detail view, very, very important. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this portion of Master the Plans. Give me your thoughts and make sure to join me next time. There's a lot more to learn.